Welcome to Access Point, the podcast where cybersecurity meets operational strategy in mission-critical environments. In each episode, we explore the access management, digital transformation, and technology trends shaping the future of identity security. Here now are your co-hosts, Chip Hughes, Chief Product Officer, and Joel Burleson-Davis, Chief Technology Officer at Imprivata.
All right, well, welcome back to Access Point. I'm here with Joel and Preston Broderick, who's actually on my team, works for me, newly now a direct report for me. So excited to have this conversation. You want to introduce yourself real quick, Preston?
Absolutely. Preston Broderick. I am the Director of AI Delivery and Transformation here at Imprivata. Been here about 10 years in the product org and the engineering org, and happy to kind of lead some of our product group into AI land as we move forward.
Yeah, and we're lucky enough today that even though this has no video for this podcast, we're all in the same room, which is pretty nice.
It is nice.
It's an appropriate thing for talking about AI.
Yeah, that's right. And I think just let's set up this conversation. This is not a philosophical any of that kind of stuff around AI. What I really thought would be useful, just based on, we've done a number of trade shows. We were at Vive, we were at HIMSS, we've talked to a number of different customers. There is this wild range out there of people who really understand what AI is and isn't. Particularly, we're mainly in healthcare, where those pieces fit. And I think we just want to sort of level set a little bit on what are we seeing? How are we talking about things? How do we think about OpenAI and some of the different models that are out there versus agents, and where this agentic stuff is going, and what does it mean to go roll your own agent, and what are the different sort of vendors doing and that sort of stuff. And maybe starting, when we talk about AI technologies, you want to just walk through, you had a slide that you presented a while back that I saw, the different type of sort of AI technologies and what those look like and what you're seeing from a market perspective.
Yeah, like orient us to the landscape of AI,
Sure. Maybe the best way that I can describe it, at least, is probably my own journey here. So before my current role was in the Imprivata Labs group, and this is a small group of folks on the product and engineering side. We focus on new technologies and how it's going to impact both our company and our customers. I think going back 2 years ago, we started to, is it 2 years now? Yeah, 2 years. So that's when sort of ChatGPT 3 came out. It's kind of the pivotal moment where everyone started to shift the conversation from what we used to think AI was, which was a lot of predictive analytics, shifting over to this almost new consumer model where it's like, hey, anybody can go and play with AI. They can ask it to summarize their emails. They can tell it to, hey, pretend you are a famous person and talk to me and have a conversation with me. That was that pivotal moment where everyone started, I feel like, talking about AI, but it wasn't quite useful in the enterprise at that point yet, but you could start to see it get there. Then the next evolution really came, I think, in the coding space. So I know specifically with Joel's team, where we started to use co-pilots, not necessarily Copilot, but those types of tools to help with coding and sort of auto-filling, helping people review code. That was another kind of step change in the area, I think. And then finally, where we're at today, where things have really, really changed, is that they've gone from just suggesting things to our, not only our engineering group, but also just across the company, to actually taking action on behalf of the user. So it goes beyond just saying, auto-filling a sentence to, I'm going to go and build, or I'm meaning the AI in this point, I'm going to go and build something on my own, or I'm going to go perform action on this person's behalf. That's where I feel like we're at right now. And that's been my evolution as exploring things in labs. Yeah,
I wonder, part of this wayfinding for the AI space is that you also see folks wonder, where's the hype and what's real? Where are we on the hype cycle and the trough of disillusionment, and what's BS that's coming out of the model companies that's real? How do you feel like you could help people get their feet on the ground to say, what's real? What's the real utility of this? How we should think about using them and incorporating them into our sort of lives and work?
I might be a bit of an extreme example, but I'll give that extreme example, and then I'll level set it as well, and then I'll maybe we'll hear Chip's thoughts and Joel, your thoughts too. I think these tools are way more capable than most people understand right now.
100% agree.
Yeah, and I think the gap where that realization doesn't occur is in a few areas. One is it's in, I'm a person, I'm either resistant to it or I haven't used it enough. I haven't gotten hands on with it to understand how valuable it can be to me. Or there are just systems and processes in place that are blocking it from being so powerful. So an example could be a regulatory environment, or you have tools that just aren't connected, or data sources that aren't connected to these tools. Those are roadblocks to being able to achieve the full value here. And they're real ones, and they're important ones too, especially in regulated industries.
There's processes and people that sometimes try to block some of that too, which I personally, one of the things I really believe in my career is, it's from one of my favorite movies, life finds a way. Well, these agents are going to find a way, right? So you should give the agents a path of least resistance, or you should give this technology a path of least resistance, but you do have to protect corporate assets. You got to make sure you don't put stuff out there. And so there's this balance, and this new wave, I think, of things that are coming in is people and jobs. And now it's like, not only am I worried about my corporate secrets going out, I also want to make sure I keep my job. And I think, the thing we've heard a lot, at least that we talk about a lot, is as a company, people should be using things like ChatGPT, these things that I can go in and ask questions and it comes back with the LLMs, all that stuff. Where what's eye-opening is if you actually go through and start looking at what I can do with these agents. And even that, personally, I haven't done a whole lot with, I'm blanking on the name, but Claude Code or Claude, whatever, the one that automatically can touch on your screen and do those pieces versus using agents to do coding. Yeah, the cowork. Yeah. And I am very confident it's even more capable than I realize. I just haven't gotten to that yet. I'm sure you both have, because you're ahead of me on some of that stuff. But I think what's possible, you talk to some people and it's like, oh, I went to ChatGPT and used it basically as Google or for some research. That's great. That is not even scratching the surface of what's possible.
And the funny thing I feel like I've seen, and I think probably maybe also a warning to whoever's listening, is that folks, that when they finally get that aha moment about how capable they really are, and that this is more than just like a tool, this can be a functional actor to do stuff that I may never have had the time to get to, or, was choosing not to because it didn't make my priorities, whatever it was. And then you realize it can, right? Like, I feel like immediately following that, they don't eat or sleep, and they're just like, in the LLM, in the AI for days,
yeah,
right? Like, figuring it out and like sort of having that aha moment.
I think there's been jokes out there, and we had someone present this, but it's like you're going through almost the stages of grief where you have to get to acceptance. You kind of go through that with AI. It's like, and I've told my team, you just need to jump to acceptance. This is what it is. It's awesome. It's going to change your life. Make it change it for good. Make it be positive, because it's really going to help you. I think one thing, Preston, I just wanted you to walk through too. We've talked a lot about sort of looking at Agentic and doing things with Agentic, and there's a lot of words out there that maybe just as a level set too, and then we can talk a little bit about how we're thinking about using this from a process perspective. But words like skills, tools, MCP, and what those things mean. I think it'd be useful maybe just those three, what each of those are and why they matter and how those are coming into play.
Sure. And Joel, chime in, on any of these too. So I think let's start with tools, right? So I think a good way to frame it for folks who may not be as familiar with the agentic work versus just what you might be used to in ChatGPT. So ChatGPT, you're kind of in a sandbox. You load in a browser, you load up ChatGPT, you have a chat. It does have some tools, but not everyone would necessarily consider that agentic work necessarily. Now, when you connect it to things, it has additional tools that it can execute on your behalf and actually perform work for you. And that's really where Claude Cowork comes in. That's what really separates like true agentic work from other things. Now, MCP and skills, we'll dig into MCP first. These are protocols basically for those agents to go and in a standard way, connect to some other services. So you might have Salesforce at your organization, or you might even have Gmail as a personal account. You can connect an MC, which stands for Model Context Protocol. It's just a standard way for an agent, an LLM, to go and connect to a service with a set of instructions on how to use it. And if you connect that, then it sort of exemplifies the power that agent has with interacting with that third-party service. And then you have skills, which are essentially a set of instructions or rules, more or less, for the agent to go and perform certain tasks. So I think this is really the skills part specifically is getting so much appropriate amount of hype because anybody can write these skills. They are written in natural language. And if you are an expert in something, you can go and write a skill for an agent to go and execute that task. And it's really exciting because I think there's a lot of fear around folks thinking, hey, if these LLMs or these AIs are so good, they're going to take my job. And it's like, well, that's not quite true. You are the expert in your domain, and you could use this as a really a tool for yourself to write a skill with the agent to have it perform tasks that you can automate and really 10x your own work by writing down the proper skill to interact with the MCPs and the tools that it has available. And that's where when you see people connecting all of these dots, that's really when like that revelation occurs and that aha moment, because you say, oh my gosh, like it can really do this super well. It's not just sending a simple prompt out. It's really executing a series of tasks on your behalf.
Right. And that's when that like 3 days of no eating, no sleeping, and I think that's true. Like the skills, I don't even know when it was introduced, the sort of idea, it's relatively new, but that sort of like the ability to take these more generic models and sort of encode domain knowledge in it that makes them highly effective at something, right? Like that's very much so a game changer for the enterprise personal needs. Like I think OpenClaw, let's like OpenClaw plus skills are taking over some folks' life.
So for the layman, I have an agent. That agent gets built somewhere, right? For lack of a better way to put it. So there are agent builder tools out there that you can go use. The MCP is effectively how I connect in the security, like the traffic cop plus sort of the instructions, if you will, right, on how to go connect to things. The tools are what I'm allowed to connect to. Is that a fair way to represent it? How would you, this is the one where I get caught up sometimes.
To me, it's a little bit, it's like the capabilities, like the extra external sort of capabilities and access. It's like access information, like Gmail could be one, your Git, if you're a developer, could be another one. It's like sort of the like repositories of information and things and functions that you like have access to.
So tools are the repositories or the things. MCP is how I connect and sort of the instructions on how to do that connection. And then the skills really gets into much more sort of persona-based. And that was one of the things, at least when I was looking at it, that it gets real interesting. Like you can build out skill sets for different repeatable things, writing requirements, doing research, skills for how you architect things, right? I mean,
writing a recipe.
Right, writing a recipe. There's lots of fun things.
Points, like everything. That's really, I think, where things get super duper flexible, and anybody can go and write a skill. And the best way to write a skill is to actually have the AI write it for you, and then you go and edit it. That's the quickest way. And yeah,
I made a joke earlier, but and I need to be careful with language. But the old adage for people, at least in software and building up, was go read the manual, insert whatever bad word in there you want to. The new adage needs to be go ask the agent, right? Because the agent will just come back and tell you what you need to go do. But I think the thing there is, there's this barrier because it sounds really scary and technical when you start with it. But the minute you actually start developing skills or start using the tools to do it, the barrier is not that high, which is awesome, but it's also what creates a little bit of the scare.
Yeah. I think that's one of the sort of points that you put down, like when people start using it and get the aha moment. So when things change.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just to go back, because I don't want to skip over it. We talked about the MCP layer. You mentioned that's sort of the security layer. I would say yes and no. it can also be the insecurity layer. Like if these MCPs are not like properly, some have authentication built in with standards based SSO, or some are token based, some are API key based, some have nothing at all. And so it can be a little bit dangerous, especially from an enterprise standpoint, to just be like, hey, use any MCP. Like you don't want to just connect any MCP server that you find online. There are certain repositories that have like vetted ones and secure ones, but this is definitely an area where I think as any company, you have to kind of be careful about what you're deploying, both MCPs and skills. Skills, I think, often get overlooked, but they could have directions in a compromised skill that could reach out to certain resources that you don't want and infiltrate data and exfiltrate data, that you don't want. So,
and I know that sort of leads into at least our view on security and how we're sort of handling some of that part of the conversation, right? So, talk through a little bit. I know we're building some of these pieces out, but our basic perspective, and I don't want to make this difficult, but is this idea that agents need to be registered and you need to know what they're accessing, and we need to be able to tie that back to users and sort of walk through how that model works, what the industry is doing around how you secure those pieces.
So I think just to start, it's dynamic right now. It's like very fluid. People are trying to figure this out, right? Yes, there's a lot of tools out there that are attempting to, hey, I'm going to discover all of the agents in your environment. That is that's a great start to it, is just kind of saying, hey, who has built an agent, who has deployed an agent. I think in a year or less, right? We're almost going to be, as individuals, we're going to have to be managing our own agents. And so when you go up a level from that, IT, legal, other pieces are going to know, are going to demand essentially to know, okay, what agents are you running? How much money are they costing me? How are they secured? What are they producing? How are you managing them? Those aren't quite built out yet. So yes, a lot of what's out there right now is observability. It's just like, hey, what's out there? And then we have to go talk to the human manager who deployed these things to make sure that they're appropriately set up. I think it's a great opportunity, and then there's a market there for trying to figure that out. Lots of companies are trying to do that. But it's not quite figured out yet. And it's coming so fast that it's something that everybody needs to think about right away, because the barrier to build an agent and a skill and an MCP server is basically zero at this point if you have a ChatGPT account or a cloud account.
Well, and it hits on a point you and I have talked about a lot, which is, we've both done identity governance stuff. We've both done privileged account related things in our career. Once those accounts get created and the passwords get set up, it's kind of hard to retroactively go fix that problem. And the trick here is if you give an agent a credential and it can go off and do its own thing, it's going to be even worse, I think, right? It's going to be harder to contain it. So set up those controls now, put the pieces in place now to go protect those agents. And we were talking about it, instead of having an end user, right, connect, let's say I'm a doctor and I'm using an agent to connect to Epic. And now Epic is going to build out its own agent architecture. So maybe not a perfect example, but instead of building out my own agent and having it connect to Epic and giving it my Epic credentials, use an MCP and at least broker the fact that agent is coming in on behalf of me in some way, shape, or form. And I think that's like one of the key things. And you want to try to set that up now, which I think is similar to the journey we went through a while ago.
Yeah, and constrain what they can do as well, right? The dynamic is, I think the thing that people are contending with the most is that, agents and AI is non-deterministic, right? It is not. It automates stuff, and that's super cool, but it is not automation. Right? You don't set something up an agent to go hit a scheduler and it only schedules, right? Like it can and will often do other things, right? So you have this like dynamic of a non-deterministic actor in your ecosystem. And I think that's sort of a new shift. It's like somewhere between human and like old school automation, and then much more powerful.
And I think organizations, at least, they have to mind the bottlenecks really closely too. I'm thankfully here at Imprivata, we have some systems in place to kind of approve things rather quickly. But as an end user, I've done this on personal accounts where I'm trying to get something done with an AI agent, and I hit an access point that to get around it, I have to input credentials to, to my AI. And it's very easy to just dump those credentials in and say, hey, just go do it for me, right? Like, I don't have the time to do this. Just go do it. And that's going to be very attractive to people, especially if you have an organization, 5,000, 10,000 plus people. There's going to be somebody in that organization who has a deadline that they need to go get work done. And the way that it's going to get done faster is just, oh, here's my username and password. Unless there's a system in place to be able to connect, safely connect that agent and that workflow to that other resource, something that I think a lot of orgs are going to have to think about.
Yeah, like that will happen unless you give them the way, like that will happen unless you give them an option to do it elsewhere. That's just as easy or easier.
Fundamentally, I think most people do try, and there are always nefarious actors, but most people try to do the right thing up front as long as it's not too difficult, right? And then that's when so you need this balance of discovery, continuously discovering and finding out if people are doing stuff rogue, because that also still will happen. But if you can solve that 80% up front and really give people the times now to go do it. So I think that's really important. Well, cool. Any other thoughts? I know there were big announcements around Mythos, security, some of that stuff. Where do you think that's going? And I'm real, you're driving this for us internally. So sort of, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, that's hot off the press, right?
So maybe what the Mythos, what I'm talking about, maybe explain that first and then sort of give your thoughts on it.
Sure. So Anthropic announced first it was leaked and then announced a model called Mythos, which is their most powerful model on various benchmarks, but particularly good at cybersecurity, both detecting threats and hopefully resolving those threats as well. I would encourage folks who haven't read about it to go and read their blog posts on it. It's very informative. OpenAI just yesterday announced essentially their counter to that called Cyber. There's less details on that, but the idea is that this is a very powerful model. The good news today is that they are not publicly available, and they are not these are sort of gated for bad actors, cannot necessarily get their hands on these more powerful models. The bad news for the future, right, is like open source models and other models in the future will start to get this good. So we have some leadway time in between. Hey, when are the good actors going to have access to these models and be able to fix vulnerabilities versus the bad actors are going to have the same powerful tools at their disposal. Where we all go from this, that's an interesting piece. I know from our standpoint, we're hoping to gain access to some of these models and test our own products. I think many companies, any company in this cybersecurity or adjacent space should be thinking about that same exact thing. Need to get ahead of this, need to fix and resolve those things fast. As a top priority, really, as a company, because it could really come to bite a lot of companies in the long run.
I think the biggest thing for us that I've looked at, that we've talked about a little bit, is you need to be looking at these tools to accelerate your ability to be agile, right, in any part of your business. And for us, we're a product company, so that means we need to be able to go through. If there are new 0 days that are discovered because of AI, great. We've got the agents and the pieces so that we can go through and remediate those really, really quickly and deal with this at the speed of this new AI piece. I think that's where this adoption and really transforming how you do business and how you manage some of this stuff is going to come into play. And, we are actively, at least on our side, working towards, from a product delivery perspective, being AI first. And there's this interesting dynamic as an organization that Joel and I get to see, do you build something? Do you go buy something and then use that native AI capability in that product set? And I think this is going to be where people with domain knowledge are going to be better at infusing AI in their products, but you better be doing it quickly, because if not, other people are going to do it and you will be able to catch up. So it's been interesting.
It gets back to the skills element a little bit, but that's a bigger sort of meta level. It's like we're getting to the point where domain knowledge in humans is some of the most valuable, is probably the most valuable thing, right? Because all of the other things that, were impediments to using domain knowledge, like how fast can you write code, like how fast can you review legal documents, whatever that is going away. And so what's left that, sort of after we're running through that is like that domain knowledge. And so it can really accelerate things, because the sort of toil of, writing code or doing reviewing 80-page contracts and stuff like that is going away. And so we can just execute on that sort of specific domain knowledge as individuals, but as like larger organizations too.
Yeah. And we'll have more time to collaborate and be creative and think, really, to take a walk outside instead of sitting in the meeting, to really take a walk around the block and think about the solution that you're going to go build with AI, rather than just sitting in a bunch of review meetings and trying to figure out how you're going to do it, which at that speed, it just doesn't work with how fast these new models are going to be pushing out, both good and bad features.
Yep. And it's going to continue to evolve. Okay. I think that's a great ending point for this. Preston, thanks for coming on and talking about this. Hopefully
Thank you.
I think this was useful. I know if I was on the other end, I would be a good primer on a lot of things going on in the market. So good conversation. And thanks for listening. Download, like, and subscribe.
Thanks. Cheers.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and follow Access Point on your favorite podcast platform. We also welcome your feedback. Please send us any thoughts, insights, or suggestion to accesspointpodcast@imprivata.com or find us on LinkedIn. Until next time, I'm Chip and he's Joel. This has been Access Point.